Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button, and make sure to like this video.
The gun fires twice in the darkness. Boom, boom. I'm blindfolded in a field somewhere in Alabama, my hand on another man's shoulder, surrounded by voices shouting death threats into the night air. One of us doesn't belong here, and if they find out, I'm dead. This is the story of Scott Payne, a federal undercover operative who spent nearly 2 decades penetrating America's most dangerous extremist organizations. From motorcycle gangs to the Ku Klux Klan to neo-Nazi accelerationist cells, he documented crimes, prevented murders, and emerged with his cover intact. What you're about to hear comes primarily from Payne's own memoir and public testimony. Some scenes are graphic, all are real. In the beginning 1985, Scott Payne is 14 years old. He's spending the night at a friend's house. They've had a little alcohol, nothing heavy, no hallucinogens, nothing that should cause what happens next. Scott likes horror movies. He's fascinated by the occult. For months, he's been playing with dark themes, pretending to summon spirits, performing mock rituals, acting out possession scenes from films. Tonight, he's doing it again. He's lying on the couch, performing a scene. His voice shifts normal, then guttural, then back again. He's pretending a demon is fighting for control of his body. His friends watch. He laughs, rolls over, then he sees it. Through the glass of a nearby fish tank, distorted by water and reflection, a figure stares back at him, red, grinning, a long crooked finger beckoning him closer. Scott freezes. The image doesn't move. It doesn't blink. It just watches him with that twisted smile. He doesn't sleep that night. Within days, Scott abandons everything. The rituals, the movies, the fascination with darkness. He returns to church. He prays. He swears off the path he'd been walking. "I got Jesus scared back into me," he would later say. That was it. That night becomes his origin point, the first time he stares into something terrible and decides he won't let it win. 1998, 2002. Scott Payne joins the FBI in 1998. By 2002, he's already worked a handful of undercover assignments, but he hasn't been formally certified. That requires something else entirely. September 2002, FBI Academy, Quantico, Virginia. Getting into the FBI takes a year of applications. Physicals, psychological evaluations, polygraphs, background checks. Then comes 20 weeks of training. Most people never make it past the first round. Payne is already an agent. Now he's here for something harder. The undercover program accepts only a fraction of applicants. Half of those who start don't finish. Sleep deprivation is deliberate. You're put through high-pressure scenarios back to back. Some candidates break down, others become erratic, delirious. Payne doesn't break. He thrives under the pressure, the exhaustion, the constant role play. It's exactly the kind of stress he feeds on. He learns from legends. Joe Pistone, the agent who spent 6 years undercover inside the Bonanno crime family, teaches some of the courses. Payne listens to every word, absorbs every technique. But the real test comes after graduation. The Outlaws, 2003, 2004. Payne's first major infiltration target, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. The Outlaws are one of the largest outlaw biker gangs in the world, rivals of the Hells Angels. They've been linked to drug trafficking, prostitution, money laundering, extortion, and violence. Getting inside is nearly impossible. Payne is given bad intelligence going in. He's told the Outlaws won't be wearing their club colors at a particular gathering. They are. Payne has no fancy credentials, no foreign languages, no Ivy League degrees. His nickname in the Bureau is Big Country, 6'4", 260 pounds, covered in tattoos. But he has something most agents don't. He knows how to blend in. He doesn't have to pretend to be a misfit. He is one. Payne works the crowd, draws attention, acts natural. A member named Spanky notices him, invites him over. They talk bikes, they drink. Payne gives his name as Tex. Spanky invites him to ride with the crew. Over the following months, Payne earns their trust. He drinks with them, fights alongside them in bar brawls, rides in their formations. He becomes their friend. Eventually, Payne pitches a story. He's a high-ranking member of an international vehicle theft ring. The outlaws are interested. They start running jobs together, insurance fraud, stolen vehicle trafficking. Then, Payne proposes something bigger. The deal. 2004. Tomorrow is the operation. Payne has arranged a large-scale drug transaction. The buyers are supposedly Canadian. The sellers are supposedly connected to a Mexican cartel. The outlaws will provide armed security. If the deal goes bad, people die. If the deal succeeds, everyone involved faces serious prison time. Payne arrives at the outlaws' clubhouse the night before. Standard protocol. He's stripped down and checked for wires. His heart rate spikes. Adrenaline floods his system. One wrong move, one piece of gear in the wrong place, and the operation collapses. He passes. The next day, 2 moving trucks pull into a parking lot. One contains drugs, cocaine, and marijuana. The other contains cash. Payne is there, so are several outlaws, armed and watching. The transaction completes without incident. Payne counts the cash himself. 8 months later, after Payne has cycled out on what the outlaws believe is personal leave, SWAT teams move in. Arrests are made. Charges filed. Sentences handed down. Payne's cover holds. His identity is never revealed to the targets. But the operation takes a toll. 6 months into the undercover work, Payne suffers a severe stress-related panic attack. He's placed on medical leave. He coordinates the final phases from a hotel in Nevada, far from the clubhouse. The work saves lives. It removes violent criminals from the street. But it costs something, too. The 21st of April 2017. Somewhere in rural Alabama. It's nighttime. Payne is blindfolded. His right hand rests on the shoulder of the man in front of him, a gesture symbolizing brotherhood. This is a Ku Klux Klan initiation ceremony. The Klan emerged after the Civil War as a domestic terrorist organization targeting Black Americans. For over a century, they lynched, bombed, and burned. Membership has declined significantly since its peak in the 1,920 but the ideology persists. Payne has infiltrated a local chapter. Around him, voices chant, "Death to your Jewish God, death to America." Someone shouts, "If there's any snitches in the group, we kill the snitches." 2 gunshots crack through the air. Boom. Boom. Payne doesn't flinch. The ceremony continues. Payne participates. He takes notes. He reports back. But the Klan, as dangerous as it is, isn't the most sophisticated threat Payne encounters. That comes later. By 2019, a new kind of extremist network is emerging online. They call themselves the Base. The name is a direct English translation of Al-Qaeda. This is not the Klan. These are younger men, better armed, more organized. They're accelerationists, believers in the idea that society must collapse through violence so a white ethno-state can rise from the ashes. They discuss assassinations, sabotage, starting a race war. Payne joins them. Online, he goes by White Warrior 88. The number 88 is neo-Nazi code. H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. H stands for Heil Hitler. Payne passes their vetting process. He's invited to meet in person. They call it a camping trip. Halloween 2019. Payne is deep in rural Tennessee with members of the base. What they're calling a camping trip is actually paramilitary training, weapons drills, hand-to-hand combat, extremist indoctrination. But tonight, something else happens. A goat has been stolen. It's brought to the center of a circle. Payne ends up at the back of the animal, holding its legs. One of the men raises a blade. He practices the motion up, then down. Someone shouts, "Just do it." The blade comes down hard. It hits the goat's back. Nothing happens. Not even a cut. The man swings again. Again. The goat bleats once, a low, guttural sound. Payne watches. This is going to get bloody and bad real fast. Finally, someone hands the man a gun. Payne steps forward. Whoa, whoa. Look at what you're shooting at. We're all in a circle. The man adjusts his aim. Fires once,
The ritual
The goat
is
drops.
complete.
But it's not over. They slit the goat's throat, fill a cup with blood. One of them produces a sheet of LSD. The ritual begins. Each man approaches. They place a hit of acid under their tongue, then drink the blood, a symbolic act meant to seal the sacrifice. Payne is one of the last in line. By the time the cup reaches him, the blood has congealed, thick, clotted. Payne looks at it and knows he can't refuse outright. That would break his cover. So he dips his fingers into the blood, pulls them out,
As we track across
sucks the
map,
blood off
the
his
data
fingers.
clearly shows
The men
significant clusters
accept
of
it.
activity in the
Payne's
Pacific
cover
Northwest
holds.
and the Southeast.
Scott Payne's story is documented across multiple sources. Source: Gray Work, Confessions of an American Paramilitary Spy, memoir published 2020. Payne's own account of his undercover operations, including details of the outlaw's infiltration, KKK ceremonies, and the base. Source: Federal Court Records, 2005-2020.
These empty
Multiple
streets and
convictions
quiet
stemming
homes
from
represent
Payne's
the
undercover
unseen
work.
victories.
Several defendants
The lives
sentenced to
protected
prison
by
terms
those
for
who
drug
work in
trafficking,
shadows.
weapons charges, and conspiracy. Source: FBI press releases, 2020. Public acknowledgement of disrupted plots tied to the base, including planned violence at political rallies and targeted attacks on activists. Document internal FBI commendations. Payne received multiple awards for his undercover work, though specific operation details remain classified. Footage, news coverage, 2000 and 2021. Payne appeared in several media interviews after retirement, discussing his career and the threats posed by domestic extremism. Not all details can be independently verified. Some events are based solely on Payne's personal account. Where this is the case, we've noted it. Some have questioned the ethics of undercover operations that involve participation in illegal acts, even when done to prevent greater harm. Legal scholars debate where the line should be drawn. Does attending a hate group ceremony constitute endorsement? Does drinking blood in a ritual cross ethical boundaries? The FBI maintains that undercover agents operate under strict legal guidelines and oversight. Operations are reviewed, limits are enforced. But the psychological cost is harder to measure. Payne himself has spoken openly about the toll the work took: panic attacks, medical leave, years of compartmentalizing trauma. There's also debate about whether infiltration truly disrupts these networks or simply displaces them. When one cell is arrested, others form. These are questions without easy answers. The operations Payne participated in prevented real violence. In 2019, members of the base were planning to murder a couple they identified as Antifa activists. Payne's intelligence helped disrupt the plot before it could be carried out. In 2020, another planned attack at a Second Amendment rally was prevented. The target was a crowd of civilians. Had it succeeded, casualties would have been significant. Over his career, Payne's work contributed to the arrest and conviction of dozens of individuals involved in drug trafficking, weapon smuggling, human trafficking, and domestic terrorism. For the families of potential victims, people who will never know how close they came to tragedy, Payne's work made the difference. But there's another side. The people Payne infiltrated were human beings. Some were lost, some were angry, some were radicalized by trauma, isolation, or desperation. Payne has said he doesn't celebrate their imprisonment. He sees it as necessary, not triumphant. "I didn't want to be their friend," he said in one interview, "but I had to be, and that's the part that stays with you." Domestic extremism is not a relic of the past. According to the Department of Homeland Security, white supremacist violence remains one of the most persistent and lethal threats in the United States. The Southern Poverty Law Center tracks over 800 active hate groups nationwide. Many are small, some are growing. Undercover work like Payne's is one of the few tools law enforcement has to penetrate these networks before violence occurs. But it's also expensive, time-intensive, dangerous. Think of it like surgery. You can't just cut blindly. You need intelligence, precision, and someone willing to do the work no one else can. That's what Payne did. He didn't stop hate. Hate still exists. But he stopped specific acts of violence. He removed weapons from the hands of people planning murder. That matters. The larger question remains, why do these groups keep forming? Sociologists point to economic instability, social alienation, and the echo chambers of online radicalization. Extremism thrives where people feel powerless, invisible, or abandoned. Payne's work addressed the symptoms. The disease is deeper. What we now know, Scott Payne spent nearly 2 decades infiltrating violent extremist groups. His work prevented murders, disrupted networks, and saved lives. What remains uncertain? The long-term effectiveness of these operations, the psychological cost to agents, the larger social forces driving radicalization. What happened next? Payne retired in June 2021. His final mission was complete, but the work continues. Scott Payne doesn't call himself a hero. He calls himself a man who did a job that required him to sit in circles with people plotting murder, to drink blood, to hold his breath and hope his cover didn't crack. He did it for 17 years. On the 30th of June 2021, the town where he lived declared it Scott Payne Day, not because he was perfect, but because he was willing. The work continues. The threats haven't disappeared, but people like Payne remind us that someone is watching, someone is listening, and sometimes that's enough. This documentary is based primarily on Scott Payne's published memoir, public interviews, federal court records, and news reporting from 2000 and 2021. Not all details are independently verifiable, as some operational specifics remain classified. Some scenes are reconstructed from Payne's personal account. This video is intended for educational and informational purposes and does not endorse any individual, organization, or ideology mentioned.